Brain Bites, the bite-sized neuroscience podcast of the Ascend program, advancing STEM community engagement through neuroscience, is made possible by the generosity of the Stiles Nicholson Foundation in coordination with Florida Atlantic University, the Max Planck Florida Institute, and the Scripps Research Institute of Florida. Welcome to Brain Bites!
In this podcast, we're going to talk about all things neuroscience, that is, the study of the brain.
Hello, I'm Serena, a graduate student at Florida Atlantic University studying how specific brain cells work.
And I'm Melissa, a postdoc at the Scripps Research Institute in Florida, and I study how the brain makes connections called synapses. We want to talk about new neuroscience research, as well as understand how the brain and the nervous system influence our everyday lives.
Cool. So, what's the first thing you think of when you think of brains?
Zombies.
Brains. Okay, well, what's the second thing?
It's what makes you smart.
The thinking organ, yeah. Our brain is the organ that controls our bodies and thinks and remembers, and it's where intelligence comes from.
There are differences and similarities between the brains of different animals, and one of the most obvious differences is the size of brains. So humans have pretty large brains, especially compared to, say, a cat or a mouse or a lizard. And we know that there's a general correlation between brain size and smarts. Obviously, humans are considered smarter than mice, and that's partly thanks to our big old noggins. That gives us space for a really big brain.
Mm-hmm. So, are animals that have bigger brains than we do, like dolphins, elephants, whales, smarter than us?
Probably not the way we think about it. Their brains are big because they adapted to swimming in the ocean. They have a lot of information to process that we don't. So the bigger brain helps them specifically, but it doesn't quite translate the same way. So like dolphins aren't going to understand nuclear physics or even like how to put together a Lego castle.
Oh, so what about people with smaller heads? Are they dumber than people with bigger heads?
Nope. Brains are actually about the same size as at birth throughout adulthood, and variations between individuals aren't quite the size difference we're talking about. It's more of an average size among species thing. And there's absolutely no evidence out there that there's a difference in intelligence between people with larger or smaller heads.
Which is good, because I have a really tiny head.
Me too.
Did you know Stegosaurus is considered the dumbest dinosaur? That's because their brains were the size of walnuts, even though they weighed over 2 tons. Not all dinosaurs had tiny brains, though. Velociraptors had a higher brain-to-body size ratio, and they hunted in packs, which takes some brain power.
Hey, Serena, have you ever memorized anything by heart?
Yeah, I know all the states and capitals and presidents and lyrics to my favorite songs and Bones in the Body.
Well, you've memorized a lot of things. You learned a lot of things by heart.
Oh, yes.
So you know where that phrase comes from, learning by heart?
Nope.
Well, ancient Egyptians actually believed that the heart was the source of human intelligence and that the brain was kind of filler in the head. So when they were mummifying somebody, they actually removed it and threw it out, but they kept the heart because that was where they thought all of the thinky people parts were. So even though this idea has long since been debunked, and we know the brain is really the organ we care about in that regard, it still lingers in our speech because we still say learning something by heart.
We declare from now on it should be learning something by brain.
Agree.
What does it mean? What does it mean? What does it mean? What does it mean? I put it in my thinking machine.
Recently, Suzanne Herculano-Huzel's lab showed that size isn't necessarily everything. They counted the number of neurons, or brain cells, within the cortex, or the part of the brain that does the thinking, and they saw that brown bears, which are pretty big, don't have as many neurons as golden retrievers, which are considerably smaller.
And so cute.
Adorable. But by using this method, dogs would be smarter than bears. So size does not matter.
That's true. Crows have even tinier brains. I mean, they've got pretty small heads, but they're continuing to show us that they're really much smarter than we thought.
Yeah, they say even smarter than young children and apes. They can recognize themselves in the mirror.
Which is pretty impressive because I have a kitten and she would freak out every time she saw herself in the mirror for a long time because she thought I was another cat.
Oh, wow.
So that crow was smarter than my cat.
Yeah, and they can even fashion tools. and use them to solve problems. And they have impressive memories. And they have even been known to bring presents to people who feed them.
Wow, so they can even recognize different people.
Must be so.
That's pretty cool. So you might be wondering, how do such tiny brains do so much? Well, they pack in the neurons. Their brains are more densely packed with brain cells than even ours, our human's brain. They don't have a lot of space to work with, so they pack a lot of neurons into this small space to make up for the processing power.
Oh, so while humans evolved bigger brains to fit in more neurons, crows packed them in more tightly. Interestingly, crows don't have a frontal cortex, the thinking part of our brains. So they've evolved different structures that allow them to solve problems and recognize themselves in a mirror.
You know, raccoons are another example of brains that are pretty tightly packed with neurons. So raccoons are also probably smarter than my cat, but I maintain that she is cuter.
Definitely cuter, yes. Now, let's dive into the depths of weird neuroscience and talk to Chelsea Bennis, a graduate student at Florida Atlantic University, about octopus brains.
Hey, Chelsea, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Melissa.
Oh, I'm really excited for you to explain what kind of research you do. So why don't you go ahead and tell everybody what your research is?
Sure. So some people know me as Octo Girl because I study octopuses in South Florida for my PhD research. My research focuses on figuring out how two species of octopus coexist instead of one outcompeting the other. So to do this, I look at what resources each species of octopus uses, and this could be like where their homes are located, what materials they make their homes out of, what time they come out to feed, their different feeding behaviors, and their diets.
Cool. So you look at a lot of interesting behaviors in octopus.
Yes, I spend a lot of time underwater.
So with all these really interesting behaviors, I've heard octopuses actually have a really unique brain. What makes them so unique?
They do. So the octopus has the largest and most complex brain among invertebrate animals, so the animals that don't have a backbone.
No big deal.
Right? And what gets even cooler is that the shape of their brain looks like a donut, and the esophagus passes right through the middle of the brain to the body.
Wow, can you imagine feeling your food in your brain when you swallow it?
It'd be so crazy. And that's why the octopus has to break its food up into tiny pieces so it doesn't hurt its brain.
So, chew your food. It's a good thing.
Right. They have a really strong beak and a rough tongue, kind of like a cat tongue. I know you have a lot of cats at home.
I do.
So this helps them mash up their food.
Cool. So I've heard that octopus, they have 9 brains. Is that actually true?
Yes. And so
wow.
in total, octopuses have 500 million neurons, but only 150 of these neurons, or 1/3, are located in their central brain, and the rest, or 2/3, are distributed throughout the arms, skin, and other organs. And so you can think of the octopus having 8 mini brains, 1 in each arm, and really smart skin.
Wow, that's really cool. So if each arm has a brain, does that mean each arm has a mind of its own? Like one arm can be digging for clams or whatever, and the other arm can be scratching its head. I don't really know what octopus do.
Yeah, so I've actually seen octopuses many times forage with a couple arms, and there may be a fish on the other side, and they'll swat the fish away to leave it alone so they don't get a meal.
Oh, cool. So do the arms know what the other arms are doing, or are they completely oblivious of each other?
Yeah, so each arm with its own mini brain can control a few of the arm's functions without communicating to the large central brain. But overall function and coordination are controlled by the big central brain.
Cool. So why are they so different? I mean, we think of most animals on Earth, we think one brain. Why are they so different from us?
So octopuses have a ton of predators, ranging from dolphins, seals, diving birds, eels, groupers, and the list goes on and on. They don't have a hard outer shell to protect them from all these different predators, so the octopus has many complex behaviors for camouflage.
Cool. So with 9 brains, are they like 9 times smarter than other invertebrates? I mean, I don't want to say they're smarter than us, but maybe they are. I don't know. Are they 9 times smarter than people?
Yeah, so their large brain allows these super complex behaviors, helps them solve puzzles, form memories, and you can imagine that they have these complex behaviors that may be similar to fishes, but they're actually more closely related to clams.
Cool. That's really weird to think about.
Yeah.
So, how smart would an octopus be compared to like a cat or a dog, let's say?
Oh, by comparison, dogs and cats have only slightly more neurons than octopuses. Dogs and cats have about 600 million to 700 million neurons. In laboratory experiments have shown that octopuses are fast learners and have short-term, about 1 year, and long-term memory. That can be up to several months. So how does this compare to your cat?
I don't know. I'm worried this is another animal that is yet smarter than my cat.
Oh, no.
Poor Juno. She's very cute, though. So what's your favorite part of studying these animals and doing this science?
Yeah, so my favorite part is probably spending a lot of time underwater. The ocean is my happy place. I spend a lot of time underwater, usually 2 to 3 hours is my dive time, and I'm always seeing new stuff, especially remarkable behaviors when observing these octopus.
Oh, that's great. Where do you actually go to see these animals? Where do you go diving?
Yeah, my study location in South Florida is called Blue Heron Bridge, and that's part of the Lake Worth Lagoon. And it's a really shallow dive site. The average depth's about 10 feet, and this allows me to spend a lot of time underwater. And the visibility is crystal clear, so I can find these very cryptic animals that like to use their fancy camouflage.
Very cool. I'd like to end the interview just going to ask you a little bit about yourself. What do you actually like to do besides science? What do you do for fun?
So, marine biology is my passion, so a lot of my free time is still spent around or in the ocean. If I could have a superpower, it would definitely be to have gills.
That sounds like a good one.
Right? I love going to the beach and collecting shells and doing lots of underwater photography. But if I'm not in and around the ocean, I also love to travel and make ocean-inspired jewelry.
Very cool. Well, thanks so much again, Chelsea, for joining us and telling us all about your research and how cool octopus brains are.
You're very welcome.
Thanks.
Brain Bites is written and produced by Melissa Borgen.
And Serena Sosi.
Our theme music is Star Lover by Focus Flow. Find us on Facebook and Instagram at ascend.program and on Twitter at program_ascend.
You can see some of the awesome pictures that Chelsea took underwater on her Instagram, the Octogirl. Feel free to send us questions and comments on social media or email us at ascendneuro@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you.